further enhance our national security, my administration will be reclaiming the Panama Canal, and we've already started doing it. It's considered a vital national asset for the United States of America. Ripped off at the Panama Canal like we're being ripped off everywhere else. A secure, he just said take it back. They gave it away.
They gave it away for $1.
Please stop. It's gonna stop.
China's economically successful. They're not just economically successful, they're the enemy.
Welcome to GVS Deep Dive. I'm Najma Minhas. 2 weeks back, the United States President Donald Trump was crowing to applause during his congressional address that the United States is reclaiming the Panama Canal back from China. Now, the Chinese have struck back. The American company BlackRock is buying the ports from the Hong Kong-based company CK Hutchison. No wonder Trump was ecstatic. He is not only getting the canal back, he's also getting major ports across the world, including some that are part of the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, known as the BRI. This move means that the US can potentially stranglehold Chinese trade whenever it wants across the world. China is the manufacturing hub of the world and exports $1 trillion worth of goods. What a triumph for Trump. But the Chinese government has just rejected the deal, which was to finalize on April the 2nd, and said that they need to look at it. Now, it's not only this deal which is threatening Chinese trade. Donald Trump has also announced that he will be charging more for Chinese flagged ships to enter US ports, and he wants US shipbuilding to reassert its historical standing in the industry. These developments have significant implications for global trade and geopolitical ramifications on relations between US and China. Why did China make this decision? How does it relate to Donald Trump's remarks about the Panama Canal and his vision for rebuilding the US shipbuilding industry? And what impact might this have on global shipping networks? These are some of the things I want to look at. Do like and subscribe to the channel and press the bell to be notified whenever the new vlog comes out. CK Hutchison Holdings, a Hong Kong-based multinational conglomerate, has agreed to sell its port operations near the Panama Canal to a consortium led by BlackRock, a prominent US asset management firm. While everyone's talking about the Panama Canal, this agreement, valued at almost $23 billion, has two parts to it, which is what makes it even more dangerous to China. First, it involves the transfer of control via 90% sale of two key ports situated at both entrances of the Panama Canal, Balboa on the Pacific side and Cristobal on the Atlantic side, both of which are critical to the operations of the Panama Canal. The canal serves as a crucial trade artery connecting the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans, facilitating the transit of nearly 40% of US container traffic. Overall, around 70% of US trade goes through the Panama Canal. Second part of the deal includes selling 80% interest in CK Hutchison's global port subsidiaries, covering operations across 43 ports in 23 countries. The transaction does not include ports in Hong Kong or mainland China, though. However, it does include major ports in Europe, in Asia, and Africa. And the company, which is owned by the billionaire Li Ka-shing, currently has control over 52 ports across 27 countries and is one of the largest port operators in the world. The deal caused a furore in China and was immediately seen as selling out the national interest by the public even before the Chinese government stepped in to block it. A March the 13th article in one of Hong Kong's oldest Chinese language newspapers that was set up in 1902, Ta Kung Pao, was titled, "Don't Be Naive and Senile." It explained that the Panama Canal was a critical choke point in world maritime trade, with some 6% of global trade passing through the international waterway. China accounts for 21% of the canal's freight flow, making it a vital economic link between the world's second largest economy and Latin America. The article asserted that Chinese netizens saw this deal as kneeling down to the US, being spineless, abandoning ideals for the sake of profits, neglecting national interests and principles, and betraying the entire Chinese people. The article asked CK Hutchison Holdings, whose side are you on? You should know, though, that the newspaper is known for its strong pro-Beijing stance. Now, the reference to senility in the title is basically directed at Li Ka-shing, who is 96 years old. And Li Ka-shing is an interesting person in his own right. He's from China originally, and with his family, he moved to Hong Kong during the Sino-Japanese War as a refugee in 1940. He started his career literally making plastic flowers, and he went on to establish CK Hutchison Holdings, an amazing achievement, building a global empire since the 1950s that now spans shipping, telecommunications, energy, and retail. The company owns many high street brands that people will be familiar with, including Superdrug in the UK, 3 Mobile, The Perfume Shop, and so on. Now, despite his business achievements, though, Li has maintained a distance from direct political involvement. He's known not to get on with President Xi, and both have had a run-in in the past over property deals that his company was involved in, or when he started moving wealth out of China to Western countries. While his conglomerate remains influential in China's economy, Li's global investments have now over time strengthened his Western ties. The company currently only makes 12% of its revenues from Hong Kong and mainland China. In the early 2010s, he began relocating significant portions of his wealth to Canada, particularly Vancouver. Now, this shift was widely interpreted as a strategy to protect his assets from potential political volatility in China. With Canada's stable legal system and favorable business environment, the move offered him both security and financial diversification, which, if we now see what happened to Jack Ma or what the US is now doing to Chinese companies, it has proven to be a wise business decision. Bloomberg has also reported that the Chinese government has now instructed that state-owned companies should not do any new business with any of his entities. Selling ports anywhere are considered to have geopolitical implications, as they are a valuable strategic asset and never treated as simple commercial transactions. Officially, the deal has now gone for an antitrust review. The Hong Kong Regulatory Authority has said it will review the deal to protect fair competition and safeguard public interest, which is government jargon to look at these deals and to make sure that customers are not hurt, for example, through increasing prices or reducing supply of a product after a proposed sale or merger goes ahead. Now, in this case, China's review of the Hutchison Port deal primarily stems from its concerns over its own national security and economic strategy. The Panama Canal is a vital trade route, and ports situated at both entrances hold significant geopolitical importance. While Hutchison Port operates from Hong Kong, China remains cautious of foreign influence. Additionally, China's long-term goals under the Belt and Road Initiative are likely to be a contributing factor in this. We are talking about ports that are in the Red Sea that Hutchison will sell. The Suez Canal, where approximately 60% of China's exports to Europe typically transit through, is accessed via the Red Sea. And the Red Sea is a strategic location for Beijing's 21st century maritime Silk Road, connecting China with the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. China's already facing issues in the Red Sea due to the Houthis' actions there for the past 1.5 years. In monetary terms, an estimated $160 billion worth of Chinese exports and $120 billion of imports pass through the Bab al-Mandab Strait, the southern gateway to the Red Sea, annually. Then we have Karachi Port in Pakistan. This is close to the Gwadar port that China was developing as a potential alternative trading route in case it was ever choked through the Malacca Straits. Now, having Americans sitting right next door is not going to make the Chinese very comfortable. Through the BRI, China has sought to expand its global trade influence by investing in infrastructure and developing strategic partnerships. Allowing a company with extensive Western connections to manage such pivotal locations poses a massive risk to the country. Now let's be clear, maybe 10 years earlier, when global tensions were not so high, or anti-China fever was not around, China may not have cared about a private Chinese port company being bought out. But current ongoing U.S. China tensions are obviously impacting how China views this deal. Former U.S. President Donald Trump voicing concerns about China's influence in the region. His remarks about wanting Panama back, referring to the historic U.S. control over the Panama Canal, which had ended in 1999, when the ownership was transferred to the Panama government, and they brought in Hutchison Ports to run 2 of their 5 ports. Trump's comments reflect broader concerns about China's expanding role on what the U.S. perceives to be its own doorstep. From his perspective, increased Chinese control diminishes U.S. economic influence and poses a threat to national security of the United States. He's also brought up Chinese role in logistics. Now, this has become a big issue since COVID and supply chains bottlenecks that arose as China closed its economy. This brought out genuine concerns across the world as countries for the first time realized their overwhelming dependence on one country, China in this case. Concern, of course, then went 360 degrees, asking, well, if this can happen from a worldwide epidemic, what would happen if China's in a war against us? China, due to its own internal policy of close down, highlighted to other countries the dangers of their dependence on the country. These consequences were probably not something that the Chinese government thought about when they took their close down decision. Now, in shipbuilding, it requires a whole vlog in itself, but briefly, Trump is advocating for a resurgence in U.S. shipbuilding. His administration has proposed investments in domestic shipyards to reduce reliance on Chinese-built vessels. This aligns with his broader America First economic policy, emphasizing the importance of rebuilding key industrial sectors and building up jobs in those sectors. Trump is backing his vision by proposing tariffs on foreign-built ships with rates that range from 10 to 30%. These tariffs are intended to incentivize companies to build ships within the United States, thereby supporting the domestic manufacturers. China-flagged shipping vehicles will get even higher levies when they call at U.S. ports. Trump has said he will impose $1.5 million on each Chinese-made ship that comes to U.S. ports. This imposes further burden on importers who are already facing 20% additional tariffs on Chinese goods. However, the decision has many challenges. The U.S. shipbuilding industry has faced decades of decline, and revitalizing it will require significant investment and time. It's really a cuckoo policy. The U.S. is nowhere on the scene when it comes to building commercial ships, and it has not been for decades. Even in the 1970s, the U.S. was only building around 5% of the world's tonnage. In 2023, this was 0.1%. By comparison, China got 74% of all new orders last year. In the short term, tariffs will likely increase operational costs for global shipping companies like Maersk, MSC, and others, who all rely on hundreds of Chinese-built ships. Now, these expenses, once again, will be passed to the American consumer through higher prices for imported goods. Looking ahead, China's rejection of the Hutchison Port deal and how it does it, and the U.S. response will likely shape the future of global trade relations. Global trade networks could see increased fragmentation, with supply chain routes adjusting to navigate this growing trade restrictions. Donald Trump has already taken the credit for the deal, and he will definitely not be happy if Chinese authorities do not allow it to go ahead. President Xi is also unhappy with the deal, as he had intended to use the Panama Canal as one of the bargaining chips with the Trump administration on tariffs. Now, this valuable bargaining chip has now been taken off the table. A safe compromise for the Chinese government could be to negotiate with the company over allowing the Panama Canal part of the deal to go through allowing Trump to claim victory while safeguarding Chinese interests elsewhere. However, since the company is not selling any of its Chinese ports, the regulatory authority is going to be hard pushed to make the case to stop the sale. But China is not the only country that can strangulate this deal. Technically, any country whose port is part of the deal can do so. This gives China the opportunity to work through a third party as well to stifle the deal. So what are your thoughts on China's decision? Do you believe Trump's tariffs are going to strengthen US economy, or will they lead to further unintended consequences? Share your comments below, and if you found this vlog interesting, informative, be sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more insights on GBS Deep Dive. Thank you so much for watching me again today.